according to Zoom, it's setting up the Facebook Live. But over here, I guess it says we're live. So I'm going to go with the idea that perhaps maybe we're live.
Well, we can
All
always
right.
find
Well,
out
good
later.
evening. Yeah. Welcome to Nourish's Ditch the Diet and Face the Feelings with Sarah, Sandra, Mike, and Beth Gray. We're talking today limiting beliefs. And I'm going to limit this in the sense of, let's talk limiting beliefs about body, size and weight, food, exercise, as opposed to limiting beliefs of what is the meaning of life.
Way to rein it in a bit.
Well, I'm trying to limit it a little bit.
Before we start, though, I think we should have Mike give us his 25 words or less about what he's got going on.
Oh yeah,
idea.
the elevator pitch. Okay,
Yeah.
we want to hear, Mike, your elevator pitch.
Okay.
That's how I started last week.
In what?
Tell us about yourself.
In what realm? Okay. I am a 52-year-old young guy who decided to make some changes in life maybe about 10 years ago, and kind of take control of diet and health. And somewhere along that journey, I thought education would be really cool to re-examine. So I went back to school online, actually earned a fitness and training degree, and health and wellness and fitness training, just anything in that world is really interesting to me. And I try to read a lot, stay current. And my goal is to just help some folks figure out that monster, because it's so big.
Awesome. So what are your limiting beliefs around that?
Good one, Sarah. Good one.
Nice.
Are you bumping up against any?
I used to that, I had to pigeonhole everything and you have to do it this way or it's not going to work. And I've just found out over the years that is so not the case. Everyone is different, and everyone needs to be treated differently. You can't just have a one size fits all diet. It's not going to work.
No. I think Beth is reading a comment.
Yeah, I'm just Samantha D here saying hi, ladies, and Mike. So hi, Samantha D. Great to have you. I know that it's quite late where you are, dear. What are you doing up at this time of morning?
She's playing hooky, I think.
Oh, yeah, she's definitely playing hooky at this time of day. Yeah. All right. So, limiting beliefs. Where do we want to even jump off and start about this? Sandra, what are your limiting beliefs about your body and diet and exercise?
I used to be a chronic dieter, so my limiting beliefs were always around, I can't have that. It's not acceptable. Weight Watchers says, you can't have that piece of chocolate.
Yeah.
And then it was ideal protein. Well, you can't have it. Yeah, huge. So you create these thoughts in your mind. Mm-hmm. You can't have that.
Yeah.
It's not allowed.
Yeah.
But what does it do to the body? Creates one heck of a stress storm in your body. So those were my limiting beliefs until I took a few courses, and actually it was my first health coaching course that I took where those thoughts really changed and hit home.
Yeah.
I think for a long time I held on to that my body is me rather than I'm contained in this body.
Yeah.
And there's a certain freedom that comes with recognizing that, this is just the container that I'm in. And so I've got some challenges ahead of myself just to get out of my own way and get this container back to feeling good and balanced in a state of health and wellness. And it's definitely a journey.
Yeah. Yeah. I know for me, one of my limiting beliefs after my diagnosis with celiac was I'm sick. And that, that it doesn't matter whether I eat gluten or don't eat gluten, I'm sick.
Yeah.
And so I had this whole limiting belief also of I'm always going to be tired. And I somehow adopted this belief of I'll never get enough nutrients in me to overcome feeling tired. That I'm never going to get well again, that I'm never going to be able to be back into that full schedule and that exercise and that routine that I used to do. And this is the new me. I should get used to this.
Yeah, I had a similar path through fibromyalgia, definitely.
Yeah.
Once you get a medical diagnosis for an illness, especially a chronic illness, it's easy to just fall into that whole limiting belief system of, well, this is what I am now. This is what I have. This is, and yeah.
Well, I know for me, it was very much, I'd had it already for 10 years with a misdiagnosis. And so I had tried different medications and different stuff, and they didn't work. So when I finally get the diagnosis of celiac, if I can finally put a name on my monster, I'm still like, well, this has been 12 years of this, and it's only gotten progressively worse. So there's no way this could possibly get better now. As opposed to, and then somebody suggested, well, it took you 12 years to get this bad, maybe, or 10 years to get this bad. Maybe over 10 years you could heal again. And I literally, I was like, okay, it might take me 10 years, but I'm going to heal this. Okay.
But at least it gave you hope.
Well,
Exactly.
absolutely. But it did. It turned that limiting belief on its head of, well, if it took me 10 years to get this bad, maybe I can get better in 10 years.
Yeah. At least that's a starting point.
And that was a great starting point. That was an awesome, just flip this on its head of, okay, well, you got this bad. Well, now how do you get back to zero? Okay. And obviously my aim now is not to get back to zero. My aim now is how do I get back to vitality and great health? But at that point, that was all I needed to hear, that really stopped, and stopped that in its tracks of, okay, it was 10 years to get here. It could be 10 years to get back.
I think if we take the time, though, and look at it from a nursing perspective, doctors do tend to say to a client, you have a disease.
Well,
that means you need the drugs. That means you need to have, and you can't do, it limits your thinking because all of a sudden, oh, I've got this disease, but now that changes my whole life. I can't do. Whereas when my clients in the community, when I saw my clients in the community, it was really awesome because they'd come back and say, well, doc says my blood pressure is up, blah, blah, blah. Oh, really? Well, let's have a look. What are you eating?
Sold.
Let's have a look. How can we change the thoughts?
Yeah, I remember when I was a trainer at the gym, it was always challenging to adjust my mindset when people would, they'd come in and I only got to see them for a half hour a week. And after a few months, they would just say, oh, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not making any progress. And that was one of my first questions. Well, okay, what's your daily routine like? What are you eating? How are you doing when you're not here, when you're not in front of me? And then they would say, well, I'm trying. So my belief was, well, you're not trying hard enough. And that was a big hurdle that I had to learn to cross and totally ditch that thought process, because maybe they were doing all that they could at that time. So who was I to say, well, that's not good enough? And I think that's where a lot of people are really struggling with how to improve self-image. And it doesn't matter what type of thought process it is, that they don't like how they look, if they don't like how they act, if they don't like how they interact with people, or if they're just not happy with their job, whatever it is, because somebody has always said, well, that's not good enough. So then they're just there. So it was just a big challenge for me to look beyond that. And that's been part of my growth in the last couple of years, is really readjusting how I think of things and approach situations, because I was the guy that would I'd pigeonhole you in a second. and yeah, you can't do that. If you want to help somebody, there's no way you can do that.
Yeah, part of the effective coaching is removing that element of judging our clients where they're at.
Exactly.
Like, oh, yeah, you're not trying hard enough. Yeah, you're right. How do we know? We don't know what their struggle is the moment they walk out the door. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Great insight. Beth, you're muted.
Yeah, I had the dog barking, so I turned it off. Anyway, I wanted to read here some comments for us. Okay, Samantha D. I need to lose weight. I need to diet. I need to look some other way. Oh my God, that puppy's so cute. Sharon, I want to run again. My limiting belief is that I've messed up my body so bad, and I'm too old to get back to that place where running is just a moving meditation. I can see it in action, but as of yet, have not got past it. And I will say this to you, Sharon. I have read and seen and heard of people that have started running at 50, at 55, at 60, and who at 90 years old are continuing to run. So if you want to use age as an excuse, I'm going to start peppering you with stories.
Sharon, you need to read the book Born to Run about the Tarahumara tribes in Mexico. That'll change your entire outlook on running. That's what they do. They run weekend-long races where they run hundreds of miles up until any age. Fascinating book, fascinating study about real people in this tribe and what they're able to do, because they don't have that limiting belief. They believe truly that we were born to run.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a great book. But also, I would say, start where you are and see where you end up. Don't try to get back to where you were, because you're not even the same person anymore. So who knows what better destination you could get to, some space you've never encountered before.
Also, too, I think for her is to really honor her body and what her body is saying to her. Many, many, many years ago, when I had my first knee surgery, the doc said I would not walk, and I would be in a wheelchair by the time I was 30. Well, I'm not in a wheelchair. I can still walk. There's things I can't do on certain days, and that's fine. I honor what my knees are saying to me and going, okay, tomorrow's going to be a different day.
Yeah.
And I think if she can do that, that'll help her.
Yeah. Living with chronic illness with fibromyalgia and getting into those days where my body just gave me so much pain and illness that I had to stop and rest and recover. There's a slippery slope there where recognizing that my body needs this rest in order to be able to proceed forward in a few days or whatever, versus getting into that mode and then slipping into victimhood and letting the diagnosis get the better of me and become a limiting belief. That's a tricky subject to manage when you're in it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Would love to hear some more from you, Mike, about this whole thing of, including even Sharon's comments about, want to get back into it, but oh my God, I'm too old. I'm never going to go back there. What happens when you get that client that's come in that they're set on, I'm too old, or I'm too fat, or I'm too, whatever adjective they're using?
Find out what their goal really is, and that may take some really pretty deep conversation to actually find out what their ultimate goal is. And it's just starting with such small bites, small steps.
Yeah.
Because like you said, no, you may not return to the way that you used to run 20 years ago. Your body changes. Yeah. And so to not get hung up on that's the real trick. Well, so what can you do? Well, you can start. So go out for a half-hour walk.
Yeah.
And run every other block. I remember when I started to run, oh my God. Okay, here's in my brain, here's a fat kid trying to run.
Well, I can remember when I was trying to get back into running, I was like, okay, I walk 5 lampposts, I run 5 lampposts. I walk 5 lampposts, I run 5 lampposts, until I can not run, and okay, then I'll jog, and then I'll only slightly move more faster than walking.
Yep.
But it was simply, okay, this is what I'm going to work on until I get to. And I know that at one stage, I did a 10-kilometer run, and then like 5 days later, I did that same 10-kilometer run, and I took probably 3 more minutes longer than I had the time before. And I was so mad at myself. And then I realized that the day I'd done the 10-kilometer run 5 days earlier, I'd come off 4 days of no exercise.
You were rested up.
I was rested up.
Yeah.
And that second time I did the 10-kilometer run, I had done exercise every single day in between, having done that first 10-kilometer run. Now, not huge exercise, but I wasn't on 4 days of rest.
No.
And, and when you come up to that, okay, just don't be so hard on yourself. Yes, you want to beat your best time, but you don't want to break yourself either.
But funny, you're sitting there talking about running and getting back to running or starting where you are. And I realized internally, I was saying, I can't run. I'm too, too heavy to run. I'm too this or too that. And I'm also comparing myself to my daughter-in-law, who's a professional triathlete. My son, who's a professional athlete.
Okay. Yeah. I see there might be a problem.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, I can't run. So.
And yet Samantha D just put here in the comments is that, her sister went from never running since school to doing a full marathon in 8 months. So it is doable with no injuries.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one thing is finishing a marathon. Another thing is winning a marathon. I don't know about you, but I'm not looking to win a marathon. I'm just looking to, oh my God, if I could do a half marathon and finish it, that would be awesome.
I could drive a marathon and win.
Nice.
I am that good of a driver.
But it is like Mike said, it's start where you're at and then work from there. I mean, Sharon goes here. Yeah. Do our bodies know at a cellular level all moments in the cycle called life? And could we recall that knowledge, that energy at any point across our entire life? Okay. I think we could.
I think so too.
Okay.
Everything else is just the limiting belief that gets in the way.
What do you mean, don't lie, Leo Sharon? What are you talking about? Samantha D goes,
Karen's just sitting out there Googling, ask a really hard question, and then just typing it into the comments. What is a really hard question?
yeah. Samantha D goes, if I could just walk across the finish line and not pass out, then I've won. Absolutely. Okay.
Totally.
I mean, just if you, I mean, and it start where you're at.
Even if you don't cross the finish line, if you get out there and you give everything you've got for that day, then you've won.
I mean, like, I remember my best friend Vicky in London. She was, I think, about 8 months out from having done open heart surgery where she'd had one of her valves replaced. And 8 months after that, she was doing a night ride from London to Brighton, which is, I don't remember how many kilometers on bikes overnight, but they were doing it like a relay race. So, you only do X amount of the thing. It wasn't that she was doing the whole from London to Brighton, but she had a support team that was there for her, and she had other cyclists that were going to ride that piece with her. She was doing maybe 20 kilometers. But that piece that she did was the total limit of, I have recovered from my open heart surgery.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, there was athletes that were doing London to Brighton, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
The point is where you're starting from.
The point is she got on a bike.
That's
Oh,
right.
absolutely. Okay. I mean, I was there a week after surgery, and my job was to make sure she didn't overdo it. Okay. So she was in the hospital for a week, and I arrived the day after she got home from the hospital. And my job was to stay for 10 days and make sure that you only do what you've been told you're supposed to do. So I took her out for a walk every day, but this is how far we're going. And I accompanied her one day to the doctor's appointment, that sort of stuff. But we were out and about. It was 1 week after surgery, and we were out. Her first surgery took her 6 weeks to get out of the house. So, that mindset work also is really important. Because when she went into her second surgery, she went in focused on, this is how well I'm going to do.
Awesome.
Yeah, I could imagine on the first one, she probably went in fearful and uncertain of what the outcome was going to be. So she didn't know what to expect. And this time she did, so she could prepare for it properly.
Absolutely. Yeah. So mindset work, addressing those limiting beliefs is really important.
I think you have to ask yourself too, why do you have that limiting belief? What purpose is it serving you? And then once you figure that out, and once you look at that limiting belief and go, how's it serving me? And create that new belief, and then ask yourself, how is this new belief going to change my life? I think if you can do that, it really helps. Did a lot of work with clients that were going in for surgery, doing exactly the same thing as resetting their mindset as to surgery's going to go well, everything's going to be fine, you're going to come out of it totally without any issues.
So what's a good way to overcome a limiting belief when you recognize one? Would it be just to visualize yourself doing the thing that you're telling yourself you can't do? Would that be a good first step?
I think so.
Yeah.
I can't read you.
My dogs were barking again. Sorry. One of the hardest things I've discovered is actually identifying the limiting belief, because we're so set in it. We've had it for so long. It's the hardest thing I would say is recognizing that it is even popping up. Like, I didn't think anything about healing my body until I was like, okay, well, if it takes 10 years,
Mhm.
okay. But you have to actually even start with recognizing, wait a minute, why am I limiting myself to this? Why is the diagnosis the outcome?
Right.
Right.
For example, my dad has type 2 diabetes, and he was at a level where basically the doctors said there was no going back. Like they were like, we're going to have to put you on meds, and we're going to do this and this and this. Mom, ex-registered nurse, now retired, was like, yeah, that ain't going to happen. I know the side effects. So she gave him short-term meds and completely changed his diet.
Oh.
He is now totally medication free, and he is under the bottom limit. He's not even considered diabetic at the moment.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Not at the
Okay.
moment. Not at the moment anymore.
Well,
Cured
yes.
it.
Well, as long as he's not allowed into the cookie jar. Okay. But he doesn't have those issues anymore.
Mhm.
See,
So,
I think that's
the
where
limiting belief was, oh, well, the doctor said.
right. So it's really helpful to have people around you that can recognize that when maybe you don't.
Yeah.
And then the tricky part is communicating that without sounding like you're a know-it-all, like you just want to take over the situation. and that's hard. It's hard to be gentle yet firmly supportive, so you just have to allow people sometimes to come to that light and that recognition in their own time.
Yeah.
And you just be supportive along the way, and when they're ready, it's like, all right, let's do this, let's go. And
lead the horse to water and gently encourage it to drink.
Yeah. And I think once you've identified you have the limiting belief, then you start questioning it, and you start questioning it from different angles, and you start looking at it. Well, okay, maybe from this angle doesn't work, but where could it work? What could I change? And I think, like Mike said quite a while back, it's not about a huge change. It's what's that one small step?
Yes.
That one small change. I mean, I posted, I think on my timeline, I'm trying to remember where I posted it, but I think it was on my personal timeline, this quote about, we always worry about going back in time and don't change anything because that would change all of history. Well, what if we had that same attitude about, if I made one small change today, I would entirely change the future? What's
Sure.
that one small, we worry about, if you went back in time, you couldn't change a single thing because you could just totally change and rewrite history. Well, if that's the case, if I make one small change today,
Mm-hmm.
I totally change the future.
Mm-hmm.
What is that change?
100%. Yeah, you alter the course.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Are you going forward or backward?
Yeah.
Are you Marty or Doc?
That's right.
Absolutely. You want to be that guy. Yeah. So, final thoughts on limiting beliefs, how to overcome them.
Well, just increasing self-awareness. Being aware of your thoughts is the first key, right? Catching one. Like when you were talking about running, and I realized that my internal response was, well, I can't run. And I thought, I wonder how many times I've said that to myself in my head. Thousands, I'm telling you, thousands. But now I caught it. So
and how many times have you thought that without catching it?
Oh, well, all of the thousands before. Because it was just like, I can't run. Yes, that's true. Swallow that down. And so now this one has been brought up it presented to me as an opportunity to change. So, when I take Bernie out tonight for a walk, well, maybe I'll run 20 steps. That'll be 20 steps more than I ran yesterday.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I know for me, there's that whole limiting belief of, oh, I don't have the time. But then, of course, the question to me was, okay, you don't have the time, but you do have the time to watch Udemy videos for training and that sort of thing. So what's stopping you from putting the training video on your phone in front of the elliptical? What's stopping you from putting that onto the TV and doing stretches? Yes, it's true. I don't have the time to go out and run for 45 minutes. Fine. But if I do 5 minutes, that's 5 minutes more than I was doing. Or if I take the dogs out for a walk, I mean, like what I've been doing lately, I take my daughter up to the park, and children's parks here in Panama are fabulous in that they have machines for the adults to use and do exercises on. And literally, I can tie my dogs to one of the machines and use all of the other machines while she's playing.
Cool.
Yeah. So literally, they are set up so that you can be on the machine watching the kids play. So
and you're outside.
I'm outside. The dogs are out. She's playing in the park. And it's summertime.
Nice.
So yes, okay, I don't have the time to go for a run. It doesn't mean I don't have time for exercise.
Sure. Yeah. Who says it has to be running?
Exactly.
Right.
Who said it had to be running? And in my head, I was like, oh, well, I don't have time for a run. I'm not doing any exercise. Okay, I'm not going for a run. But
sometimes I feel like when I'm drumming my fingers impatiently waiting for my coffee at Starbucks that I'm getting a lot of exercise.
You better switch hands.
I remember when, I don't know if you've ever read The 4-Hour Body.
Yeah.
Okay, well, The 4-Hour Body, he says, anytime you're waiting in line, start doing your squats. Now, you feel like an absolute idiot because you're doing squats while you're standing in line. And I don't know about you, but when I was doing that, I was not my healthiest, happiest, energetic, athletic self. And so I'm like, here's my fat ass doing squats in the line, if I was athletic, I might get away with this, but they're going to be looking at me like, what the hell is wrong with her? But how do you get back? How do you get back into your athletic self? You do 20 squats when you're standing in line.
Yeah. How about you, Sandra?
I think we just have to really recognize that our thoughts are what really creates our realities. And we're the ones who are in control of our thoughts. And it's that nice little ego part of our brain that's going, you can't do that. We have to recognize that and really listen to what that little voice is saying to you.
I just got an image of Mickey Mouse in Fantasia. I don't know. I think he's in charge.
Yeah. How about you, Mike?
I would say I agree with everything so far. And there's also a flip side to that. When you start making progress, then there's the capacity to compare. So then you might go too far and go overboard and push too hard, and that's when injuries start.
Yeah.
So it's really a pretty good balance that we have to have with ourselves to realize, number one, I can do this, and I'm not in competition with anybody except who I'm looking at in the mirror in front of me.
Exactly. Yeah.
So but it doesn't come easy. We're not conditioned to do that. It has to be a very conscientious thought process, and not everyone knows how to do that. And that's where we come in.
Yeah.
I think too, though, we're always looking for that really quick fix.
Okay,
That
I'm
we
not sure what
want it
happened in all the
now.
comments, but somehow now Samantha D is talking about padded spandex. I'm not sure if I should go back and look through the rest of the comments. Anyway, thank you guys. I am going to end on that note. Thank you, Samantha D, for the padded spandex comments. I've got a great visual of how that's going to look. And catch you guys next week, same time, same place. And next week we're going to start talking about strength. Okay. And obviously in Nourish, we start on the 1st, which is Friday, a new challenge, which we're inviting everybody to participate in. It is the Face the Feelings part of Ditch the Diet. So we're inviting everybody to come into the group, participate in the challenge, and throughout February, you're going to be looking at all of your feelings associated with eating. Every time you eat, when you start eating, how are you feeling? When you stop eating, how are you feeling? What is that feeling part of that? What and hopefully noticing patterns of, oh my goodness, look, I was anxious, and every time I'm anxious, I eat. Or every time I've eaten, I was anxious. I wonder what that tells me. Okay, so come and join us in February and Nourish. It is going to be, I think, a really great challenge for everybody. And we're talking about eating occasions, not about meals. If it's 3:00 in the afternoon and you're munching down on a Mars bar, that's an eating occasion.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the forms and instructions are located in the units section. So you'll need to print off page 1 4 times because it's 1 page for each week in February.
Right. So, but please do obviously come and join us. We would love to have you in Nourish and have you participate in the challenge and see what patterns you start to notice in your life. What's coming up for you when you actually start to pay attention and be a little bit more mindful. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Sarah. Catch you all next week.
All right.
Thank you.